Do you want to taste like a pro? And what are the tips and tricks that pro tasters use when tasting and describing wines? And what are some of the common wine faults we find in, unfortunately, some of our wines? My name is Malcolm Lamont. I'm a certified wine educator with the Society of Wine Educators, as well as a holder of the Diploma in Wines and Spirits with WSET, and a graduate degree in Education and Curriculum Teaching and Learning Studies. I'm very excited to take you through this webinar on how to taste like a pro, and by the end of this session you will be able to describe the conditions and 6 S's of tasting wine, as well as be able to practice picking out wine aromas. For example, vanilla or dark cherry aromas in wines, and also be able to describe wine faults. So you might find yourself at a wine tasting at a winery or at a restaurant or with friends and family, maybe over the holidays. So this is a skill that you can use and hone, and I'll show you exactly how pro tasters taste and how they learn to taste wines to an expert level. So the first thing is a good condition in the room. So you want good natural light, as well as no odors like perfume or aftershave. It's important that you have water and spittoons at hand, as well as the wines, of course, and proper wine glasses. And a white background, such as a napkin or a piece of paper, can help detect the appearance of the wine that we'll see in the 6 S's of tasting wine. So it's important your palate is fresh and clean, so no toothpaste, no mouthwash before tasting. Cigarette smoke, strongly flavored foods can all impact our palates and change the taste of the wines that we're trying to assess, these delicate, nuanced flavors over multiple wines. Maybe you're tasting 10 or maybe 20 or 100 wines in a day. So it's important that your palate be fresh and clean. You can refresh it with water or soda crackers, a neutral flavorless cracker. And maintain that detection ability within our palates. Ourselves, when we taste, we should be rested. When I was a product consultant at the LCBO, we would taste from 9 a.m. till about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So very important to be well rested and hydrated throughout the day, the night before and throughout the day. And if you go to a winery, if you're not spitting and you're consuming wine over 3 or 4 or 5 visits to different wineries with 3 to 6 samples of wine at each winery, fantastic experience. But it is consuming alcohol, so that will affect you if you're not well rested or if you're not spitting the wines. So how do you taste wine? Well, there's the 6 S's. So the 6 S's are to see, where you look down through the wine to see the color. Is it a deep ruby? Is it a medium gold? For a white wine, you want to see and kind of look, and as you practice this, you'll start to recognize patterns and see differences, slight differences between a deeply colored red wine, for example, or a pale Pinot Noir or Nebbiolo. You can start to notice differences in the appearance of the wine. And then swirl. So you can swirl the wine. This is going to take increase the oxygen contact and release the alcohol that's in the wine and the incredibly delicious flavors that are in the wine as well, and that releases them into the bowl. So you can sniff. And recommended, if you're tasting wine, to detect the aromas better, to take quick sniffs, such as, and that will help really stimulate the organ in your nose, the olfactory bulb, to detect the aromas and take them to your brain, where you can recognize them, that I'll show you in a couple slides. So once you've sniffed, you want to take a sip, the best part, and then swish around as though it were mouthwash, and really get it in all parts of your mouth, because that will increase the chance of it being detected. You have different receptors for acidity and bitterness, and different parts of the wine are detected in different parts of our mouths, not like the tongue map, but something like the tongue map, which has some degree of truth to it. but you do want to swish the wine around your whole mouth to taste it the best. So I'll show you. And you can draw oxygen through your pursed lips, and that will also, similar to swirling, agitate the wine in your mouth and release the aromas that travel nasally back through the back of our nose into the olfactory bulb to be detected to go to the brain. And then savor as well. So taste the lingering, pleasant, lovely vanilla bean, some toasty smoke on this. Pinot Noir, really nice, long, pleasant finish. And that's the savor component. All right, so take a deep breath. And we're going to learn how to pick out wine aromas. So pros are able to detect the nuanced fruit flavors, spices, floral, maybe different notes, maybe some earthy or kind of non-fruit flavors. So let's see how that's done. So the most important is that this is a skill. Detecting aromas, nose training is a skill that sommeliers learn, wine educators, wine writers, wine students all learn how to recognize, detect and recognize the aromas. And just about everybody is capable of detecting. So you're capable of detecting these aromas. And so, for example, if you're smelling wine and you thought, I'm not sure, but somebody said, well, what about, red plum? And then you say, oh yeah, there's red plum. So it's not that they're implanting that in your mind, although maybe it is a bit part that, but it could be that you already detected the red plum and then your recognition is being unlocked. So that's the skill, is practicing the recognition once you've detected the aromas in your nose. And so that recognition is just like a skill, like shooting a free throw or practicing piano. Experts that have trained for hours and hours and hours and hours can detect and recognize wine aromas. Just like Michael Jordan, for example, would know if the ball was going into the net from a free throw as soon as it left his hands, because he's just done it 10,000 or 20,000 or more times. The other key is to drink expressive wines. What do I mean by expressive wines? Better quality wines in our market in Ontario, around 25, 30 Canadian dollars, up to 50 and more. But certainly around 25 to 50 will be well made, probably lower yields, most likely lower yields, perhaps some oak flavors and an oak program, hand sorting of MOG, etc. So these wines are better quality and what's called expressive. They're more expressive. So when you smell aroma, if it's a $10 wine or $15 wine, it's a commodity, and so these are vague. It's going to be vaguely cherry-like or vaguely vanilla. It won't be very expressive. It won't be very precise fruit. But something like this Pinot Noir, this 2020 Pinot Noir from Okanagan Valley, it's very expressive. There's some cinnamon, other spices like nutmeg, clove, and vanilla. Really a lot of brambly fruit, dark cherry, blackberry, cassis, perhaps. But it's very, very expressive. And you can really detect the aromas with recognition and training skill and drinking expressive wines. Okay, moving on to the wine aroma wheel. So the wine aroma wheel, developed by Ann Noble at UC Davis, University of California at Davis, in the 1990s. And this aroma wheel is a tool that you learn in sommelier school or use in sommelier school. You may be able to find the image online. And it's a wheel with 3 rings. So the way it works is the innermost ring is where you determine if it's going to be fruity. So when you're smelling your wine, is it more fruity? Is it spicy? Is it earthy? There's some pretty interesting ones, but kind of fruit, spice, floral are the most common. And if you're getting, a fruity component, you go a little bit further out to the next ring. Is it a berry component, like blackberry or brambleberry? Is it dried fruit? Is there any raisin or prune characteristic? You know, strawberry jam, like a warm climate Pinot Noir. Is there any spice would be another category, but once you go, is it fruity? And then you go to the next ring, is it berry or dried fruit? For white wines, it might be tropical fruit or citrus like lemon, grapefruit, lime, for example, and or tree fruit. And then, so once you've gone on your wine from the inner ring, and then you go a little bit more expressive out to the next ring, and then if you're able to go to the next ring, and with practice you can get out there, you might detect expressive aromas, precise aromas of cherry, you know, cherry, dark cherry, strawberry, bramble fruits, black currant, blackberry, and you can get more precise as you go out to the further edges of the ring. So let's talk about wine faults, kind of the taboo, but I think that a lot of wine faults are not detected in wines. Maybe at a restaurant you order a nice, you're spending 80 or 100 or more dollars on a bottle of wine, or maybe less, and that's fine. But then this wine is not the way it should be, not the way the winemaker made it and designed it to be. And it comes to your table and there's a wine fault that we'll look at what some of the common wine faults are and how to detect those faults. So the three most common faults are cork taint or corked wine, sulfury, like struck match, and vinegar nose or volatile acidity. So corked wine comes from a bacteria that can exist in the winery walls or in barrels or in cardboard boxes. It's called TCA, and this bacteria infection infects the wine, can get into corks, but because it can exist in barrels in a winery or other wooden or paper substances, it can also impact screw cap wines or non-cork, corks, synthetic corks as well. So it's possible to have a corked wine from, with any sealing, any closure. And what does it smell like? It smells like musty basement. If you picture that kind of damp basement or wet cardboard, wet dog, it's kind of an unpleasant smell, and there's a threshold. So you may detect it really easily, or you may not detect it at all, and somebody else may detect it, but you don't, or you do and they don't. So there can be a variance, but if it's really strongly musty or wet cardboard or wet dog, then you can send the wine back, and at the most reputable retailers will take back the bottle as well of a faulty wine. Sulfury is another fault, although much less common than in the past, where winemaking is getting better and better throughout the world, and it smells like a struck match, or kind of blocked drains, or rotten egg. It can smell like if it's too over sulfured. Sulfur is a natural compound used in preserving wine. It's an antioxidant and an antimicrobial. So you actually want, this is a whole debate, and without opening a can of worms, you may or may not want sulfur used in your wine, but most stable wines are used with a little bit of sulfur, and it's the use of it is getting better and better and more precise and judicious. So, but it can still be sulfury. If you get a wine that smells like struck match, it can blow off. This is one of the faults that is able to, with oxygen and time in a glass or a decanter, it can come out and the wine is kind of revived. Whereas with corked wine, it's innate in the wine, and vinegar nose volatile acidity as well. It's if you get a vinegary wine, it's in fact even worse. It'll only get worse with time. If you think the French word for vinegar is vin aigre, sour wine, and so vinegar, vin aigre, is a process of wine that has either oxidized or had acetobacter come in contact, and it's starting to become vinegar, and it can smell quite strong like vinegar or glue. If it goes even further in oxidation and alcohol, it can smell like nail polish remover, ethyl acetate. And so these faults are the ones I find, the vinegar nose and volatile acidity for ethyl acetate, which is nail polish remover. That one I find is the one that gives me the most headache. So if the wine's been open for not very long, 2 or 3 days, or certainly more than that, even in the fridge, even if it's red or white, under most conditions, it'll start to go to vinegar. and then if I smell it and drink it, then I'll find I get a headache. And the stronger the vinegar component, the stronger the headache. And so the longer you leave it either out or in the heat, opened in the heat, or even in the fridge, can give you quite a headache. So those are the key faults that we find in wine. There are a few other ones, but I'll save that for another webinar. So the conditions and the tricks of the pros, such as a proper tasting room, tasting glasses, being well rested and hydrated, the UC Davis aroma wheel, as well as taking short sniffs and practicing your skill of recognition and describing wines and wine faults. So do go out and practice and continue practicing. It's a great journey. And thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate you watching a webinar on Constructive Wine Online, and cheers to you. We'll see you in the next one.